Hey everybody, and welcome back to yet another fun and exciting pre-calculus class. Today we will be in lesson 12.3 in your book. That is on page number 231. Page 231, lesson 12.3, the general equation of the circle. So go ahead and look down there in your book, and what we're going to be doing today is basically taking equations from one format to another format. Okay, so when given the circle in the equation x squared plus y squared plus ax plus by plus c equals 0, we want to rewrite this into the standard form. So we're going from general form into standard form is what we're doing. So go ahead and look over here at my screen, and let's go ahead and kind of just work through this. But here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going from this format right here, okay, into this format right here. Now, you might say, why waste the time doing that? Well, there's some key reasons. One of the biggest reasons is, look, this doesn't have an R. So what's the radius? This doesn't have a what? An H and a K. So what's the center point? Well, we don't know because it's not in standard form. We need to take it from the general form to the standard form. When we get it there, we will understand what the H and the K is and what the R is, and that way we can go ahead and we can graph it. So that's why we need to do it. So let's go ahead and look down here, and this is going to be the first one. This is example number 1 on page 231, and you can follow along there as I do this problem. All right, so here we go. Find the center and the radius, then graph the circle. Well, we can't do any of it because we don't know what the radius is. We don't know what the H and K are, so we're kind of lost right now. So how do we do this? It's not that hard if you remember something key, something from Algebra 2, something that I told you in Algebra 2 you're going to need this in the future, okay? And you're like, what, Algebra 2? I don't even remember that class at all, right? Okay, yeah, I get it. All right, so here's what you need to do. You need to complete the square. Now, if you remember how to complete the square, this is from the quadratic chapter, you should be just fine. We even did this a little bit in Algebra 1, I think. So you should be fine if you remember how to complete the square. If you don't remember how to complete the square, you're going to have to go back into the algebra book, and you're going to have to remember that and look that up. And I'll do it, but I'm going to do it fairly quickly here. I'm not going to really teach the process. I'll go through it step by step, but it probably will help you to go back and to look through those videos. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to take this and I really want to break it up into two separate equations. I want to do the x equation and I want to do the y equation, okay? Now, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to move this 36 over to the other side. I'm going to subtract 36, and I'll get negative 36 over on that side. And then I'm just going to move these pieces to fit in. So I will go ahead and have 2x squared minus 20x. That's going to be my x piece of this equation. And then I'm going to have my y piece to the equation, and it's going to be, and I can put parentheses around this so that you can see this a little bit better. And I'll put a plus sign in between there, and then we'll go to the y section of the equation. It's going to be 2y squared plus 4y. And then I'll finish out the equation by saying equals negative 36. Took the 36 over to the other side. So there's my new equation. This should already be looking a little bit better to you because what is our standard form? What are we going toward? We're going toward, like, our x is in one place. Let me change this to the color that I used down there. So our x is in one place, our y's in another place, and then our r is going to be over here. So you're going to see all this, those purple pieces right there, that's going to give us our h. The yellow pieces, that's going to give us our k. And then the blue pieces, that's going to give us our R. So this is what we need to do. We need to complete the squares. We need to complete this square, and we need to complete this square. What does that mean? Well, we need to take it to this format right here. What's that format? X minus h squared. So we need to do what's called completing the square. Now, before I complete the square, one thing that I really probably need to do to all of this right now is I need to really just divide every single term by 2. It's going to make the whole thing so much easier, because what it's going to do is it's going to take everything and it's going to make it in its simplest form for me. So I'm going to get x squared minus 10x, and then we'll have our plus, and then we'll have our y squared plus 2y, and then that's going to be equals negative 18. Okay, and let me put our parentheses back on here. That's just going to help you see it all a little bit easier. All right, so now I'm ready to complete the square, now that I've kind of got rid of that coefficient. The way that I do that, if you remember, is take the linear coefficient, which is 10, cut it in half, and square it. That's all we have to do. X squared minus 10x. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to add it to this. So plus 10 divided by 2, and then I need to square it. And I need to do the same thing with this y term. So this is plus, and then my y term is going to be y squared plus 2y. I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm just going to write it like this so you can see it. Obviously, you should know what that is when I square that, and then squared. And then equals negative 18, but there's more that I need to do, because look, if I added this over here, then I need to add it to the other side. So I need to do plus 10 over 2 squared. I'm running out of room. Plus, and then 2 over 2 squared. Sorry, running out of room over there, trying to jam it in there. All right, and now I just need to kind of expand all of these out and take the squares of each one. So what does this look like? When I factor this right here, I'm going to get x minus 5 squared. Okay. Now, again, that should be exactly, you should be like, oh, wait, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, go back up here. That's what you're looking for, x minus something squared. Perfect, we got it. Okay, and that's why we went ahead and we completed the squares so that we can factor it and get what we need to get here. When I do this one here, this is going to give me y, and then it's going to be a plus 1 quantity squared. And then when I do this over here, this is kind of a mess over here, so let me kind of get all this over here, equals, and this is going to be 18 plus all of this. So let's go ahead and figure out what this is. Put a little box up here so you can see it. So we're going to have negative 18, and that's going to be plus, what is 10 divided by 2 squared? 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is going to be 1. So that's plus 1. Negative 18 plus 25 is going to give you 7. 7 plus 1 is going to give you 8. So our number over here is going to be 8. So here's something here that a lot of students miss. This number right here is not our r. That is our r squared. Okay? So our r squared is 8, so we need to find r. So let's go ahead and put another box right over here, and we'll put our 8 should be easy to see, right? Our 8 is right there. It's negative 5. Our k should also be easy to see. Our k equals positive 1. But our r is just a little bit harder to see right here. It's 8, but it's not 8. This is where so many students, you would not believe how many students go wrong here. In fact, you might go wrong here, and you're going to remember me saying this. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. So this is going to be the square root of 8, but that's not really a good answer. Okay, because we know what the square root of 8 is, or we can simplify the square root of 8. So when we have the square root of 8, it simplifies out into the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. What comes out of here is 2 square root of 2. So that's technically a better answer than the square root of 8. We can also take our calculator and we can put that in and we can find out that our R is, you could use our bacon, it's approximately equal to, our decimal would be 2.8. Okay, so this is an approximate equals to, and this would be our R is equal to 2 square root of 2. Now, a lot of times students put the R equals 8. It does not. It does not. It does not. It equals the square root of 8, because remember, this is, what is this in our standard form? Let's go back up here to our standard form. What is this? It's right there. It's R squared. So in other words, R squared equals 8. We have to square root both sides to get R equals the square root of 8, or 2 square root of 2, or approximately 2.8. Okay. All right, now before we graph this, I said something a minute ago and I said it wrong. So let me kind of go back and let me kind of talk about this. I said that our h is -5, and I just took it right from here. But it's technically not -5. So let's go back up to, what is our standard form? Our standard form is -h. This is one of those really tricky things that you have to remember. When the formula is negative, when you have a negative here, so this is like, what are you inserting into that spot? You're not inserting in the negative. You're just inserting in the positive number. That makes our h right here a +5. Okay, because when we insert the +5 in there, it keeps the formula negative. Okay, now watch over here. Our 1 is actually going to be a -1, because when we insert the -1 into the formula, because our formula is what? Y minus k. And so when we insert the -1 in there, notice it turns this positive. So that is very important, because when you get to graphing, you're going to need to remember that it goes the opposite way. So your h and your k are always going to switch signs right there. So if this is a -5, your h is actually a +5. If this is a +1, your k is actually a -1. Very, very important to remember there. Okay, so let's go ahead now and go down and graph this one. Our h and our k is going to be 5, -1. 5, -1. What is the h and the k? This is our center. That's our circle center. So how do we get it? We just now graph it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1. Right there is where our circle center is going to be. Okay, the center of our circle. Now, how do we get the radius? This is a little bit tricky right here, because you say our radius is 8. We already went through that. The radius is not 8. What is our r? Our r equals 2 square root of 2. Or it equals what? 2.8 approximately. Now this can be a little bit tricky. I think the easiest way to graph this is by using this approximation right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go approximately 2.8 away. Now, let's kind of blow it up so that we can do this. We're going to go approximately, so 1, 2.8 is going to put us, okay, it's not going to put us on this. It's going to put us just shy of that spot, right? And we can also now go 2.8 up. So we're going to go 1, 2, and then 0.8 up. So it's going to be just shy of that. We can also go 2.8 over this way. 1, 2, and then 0.8 right in here somewhere. And then we can go down as well. 1, 2, and then our 0.8. So basically you go from that center point and then you count your approximate. And it's not going to be perfect. There's no way to get it perfect unless you're doing it on a computer. And then what you would do here is then you would just kind of use your dotted lines to draw your your curve, your circle as best as you can. Obviously, my circle is terrible, but you would do your best there to draw a circle. You could also take your compass and you could put your compass on that point, and then you could draw a perfect circle from that point. You could take, just all you would need is 1 point in that case. So you would just do 1 point at 2.8, take your compass, put your point on the point, put your pencil on the other point, and then draw your circle around that point. You don't necessarily have to do that from me here in Precalculus, but that is something that you could do. All right, one more thing in this lesson. Let's kind of go back up here. Example number 2. And what example number 2 is it says, I want you to prove that this is not a real circle. What does that mean? It's a fake circle. No, it's an imaginary circle. In other words, this is going to have an imaginary number in it somewhere, and we just need to just see what happens. And I told you about that in the first lesson. I said you're sometimes going to have non-real curves, and this is one of those cases where you have a non-real curve. All right, so we're going to take this, and we are going to try to complete its squares. I'm going to do this work fairly quickly. So we're going to have over here, we're going to have x squared, and then we're going to have minus 4x, and then we're going to have plus, and then we're going to have y squared plus 8y, and then we're going to have equals negative 25. We're going to complete the square from there. The x term is going to give us x squared minus 4x, and that's going to be, when we divide it by 2 and square, it's going to be 2 squared. And so we would add 2 squared over here, and then we would go in here and we would do our y side, and we'd end up with y squared plus 8y. We divide that by 2, we get 4, and we would have 4 squared over here, and then we would add 4 squared over there. Again, I'm going to do this fairly quickly just so you can see what it looks like, and I'm going to get x minus 2 over here, and that's going to be squared. And then I'm going to get plus y plus 4, and that will be squared here. And then when I add these up, it's going to give me a negative 5. That's the key right there. Everything else on this side looks good. You know, we've had these before. Everything's fine there. But when we do our little formula here where it's r squared equals negative 5, and we square root both sides of this is where the trick comes in. We get r equals the square root of negative 5. That is not a thing, right? We can't have a square root of a negative, so when we extract that, we get I square root of 5. Because we got an imaginary number there for our radius, bingo, that is not a real circle because we have an imaginary radius. All right, that's all I have for you there. Hopefully you learned something in that lesson. If you missed anything, make sure to slide it back, watch it again. Some fairly heavy stuff. If you remember how to complete the square, then it shouldn't have been too bad. If you don't remember, make sure you go back in Algebra 2 class there, watch one of those videos and review that and work on that, that technique right there. Okay, that's all I've got for you. Hope you have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye.